I'll just really quickly.
Hi guys.
Keith, this is Devin.
Nice to meet you.
This is Lincoln.
Nice to meet
Devin
you.
is our chair, and Camilla's our vice chair.
Okay.
So,
Alright.
all right, let me just.
Kaylee go? No.
This is the one that she can't come to tonight. Yeah.
That's why this is all we're doing.
Recording in progress.
At our last.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it alright with you all if I open a couple windows?
Sure.
Please, yeah.
Say it's your building, you do what you want.
Until it turns green in here.
Yellow.
True. Greenish yellow.
Black fly.
His shirt.
Sex.
Okay.
I think he's on
Probably.
Okay, well this will be, since it's a small crowd,
Yeah.
let's go fast. Okay, so,
Do we have anyone on Zoom?
well, that's it. We've been working with your committee just for, to work on the hazard mitigation plan. And we did a scoring matrix, and we'll go through our real quick slide deck and just kind of explain what we've done so far and how we'll, basically, how this will work moving forward to finish this up. So,
Okay.
I do know that Dorothy Todd was thinking about coming, and a couple of others. Just so keep your eye on.
Yeah,
Zoom.
I definitely
But
will.
are we sharing our screen so it's okay? Whatever happens.
Yeah, and we,
Yeah.
we can give you the slides too
Yeah.
after the fact.
Okay.
If people want
Awesome.
that.
She was particularly concerned because she lives in the floodplain. So.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, hazard mitigation plan has two main pieces to it. You have the hazard profile, which we have to align the hazard profile with the state's hazard mitigation plan. So we're kind of working under the umbrella of theirs. We align the hazard profile. We have to basically come up with a scoring matrix for anything that's in the state hazard mitigation plan. So when you see the later slide, you'll understand why some of these things we do like actually score them. And then the big thing is the mitigation actions. So that's what you as a community want to do to try to mitigate the overall risk of the community, moving forward. Historically, these would have been used to mitigation actions that were listed in these. Also then got a higher score if you were going for FEMA funding, both for BRIC grants, hazard mitigation, flood mitigation assistance. A lot of those don't exist currently, so we're not sure how these will work going forward, but it still does matter to your town ERAF score, which is with the state of Vermont. So, yeah, hazards are listed as events or physical conditions that have the potential to cause damage or loss of life, and mitigation is just those long-term actions. Just some definitions there. Next slide.
7? There you go.
So yeah, you're trying to think of like how to minimize the downtime after a disaster. How can you get your community back to fully functioning, or at least functioning? Both roads and businesses, every part of it. Yeah, and this is the idea of working through these is trying to really get the issues that are important to your community. In Vermont, these are a little different than you see in most of the rest of the country. Most of the rest of the country, these are done at the county level, but because we don't have county government, we currently, under the previous funding type, which was utilizing BRIC grants, we did these at the town level. Chittenden County is the only community, or only county in Vermont that does a larger plan, basically for almost their whole county. They do have like one or two towns that don't opt in, but going forward, we might, if the funding doesn't come back, we'll probably move to a more of a county level focus, just so everybody's aware. But at this time, we don't know what we're going to do as far as that funding model. We have a meeting actually with BEM soon to kind of start hashing that out and figure out what our process is going to look like.
Will you do me a favor, please? The first time you use an acronym, will you
Vermont
tell us?
Emergency Management. Yes, sorry. Yeah, because exactly.
And we all get so lost at acronyms
Oh, yeah.
in government, so
Yes.
that would be great. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing
There's
that.
Dorothy.
Oh, good.
Hello.
Lowest
Welcome.
place in town.
Thanks for coming, Dorothy.
So planning for mitigation or for disasters, actually, especially in the mitigation action, the way FEMA handles BCAs, at least in their own internal reviews. For every dollar that's spent on mitigation action, usually gets about a six-fold return. So you're saving $6 for every dollar that's spent generally. That's why they do a benefit cost analysis on any of their mitigation actions, but projects that they fund. So like if they wanted to do a dam removal, they generally, the way they work through that to see if it's going to be worthwhile, they do a benefit cost analysis, and like I said, for every dollar they spend, they generally figure they're saving $6 over the next 30 to 50 years in damages. And LHMP is required to qualify for both post-disaster funding. So for hazard mitigation projects, like the current projects that are being developed and working through from the flood of 23, you have to have a hazard mitigation plan to even access that funding. If a town doesn't have one, you can't get hazard mitigation funding. And then yet again, the emergency relief and assistance funding that Vermont has requires an LHMP, and that with a couple other pieces, gets a town 5% more in money from the state. In a federally declared disaster, once FEMA pays its share, then the state ERAF program steps in and pays a share, and this helps.
And ERAF is Emergency Relief Assistance Fund.
Yes,
Okay.
assistance funding. Yeah.
And that still exists?
Yes, that does
Because it's
still
at the state
exist.
level?
Yes.
Today.
Yeah.
Today.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yes.
The BRIC grants are not currently
Yeah, BRIC grants are
funded,
gone.
Yeah.
But FEMA is still funded?
FEMA is still currently funded. The administration is saying they want to get rid of it. Congress, as of last week, has put together, so on both sides of the aisle, they agree they want FEMA to exist. There actually is a bipartisan bill that is coming out of multiple committees with a lot of good updates, because any of us that have worked with FEMA realize there could be a lot of improvements to the program. They want to take it back out from under Homeland Security and make it a cabinet level position again, which it was before 9/11. And from what I've been able to see so far, it looks like a lot of good updates. Cool. I'm sure, I know Welch has been advocating for this since 23. Actually, I think he's even advocating for it before that. Yeah, and it's basically a lot of people from North Carolina. Tillis from down there, he's one of the big advocates for it. I think it'll probably pass.
Cool.
Just, I don't know how the administration will react.
Yeah.
As they're trying to close it, and everybody else is saying, we don't want that to happen.
Fingers crossed. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's very important to understand
are
the
welcome.
current context. And especially in a small group, it's easy to talk about. So, the core local hazard mitigation update team is, from your town. So we had to have to report on progress that's been made since the 2019. So any of the mitigation actions that were listed in that, we have to give an update for that. Describe any changes or trends that have changed in the community. When I was working with Berry City on theirs, landslides came up as a much bigger piece, because just in the aftermath of 23, that was so significant in their community, besides the flooding, obviously flooding shows up in every one of our communities in the region as the number one priority, either fluvial or inundation. But, sometimes those site conditions change over a 5-year time period. And there specifically, they had 20 some landslides in Berry City just in that event.
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah, any place where there was fill on the steep slopes, it started shifting. And there's a lot of fill in Berry from, when you have granite quarries, there's a lot of waste material. Goals from this meeting are to review the hazard analysis scoring and then just collect any ideas for mitigation actions, if anybody has any, that we can start thinking through to include in the plan. And then future opportunities to participate. Once we have the draft plan, it'll have to be posted for public comment for at minimum of 2 weeks. So anybody can definitely comment. We can still make edits to any part of the plan. And it's a living document, so even once it's completed and the town has accepted it, it just takes a select board vote to add any new mitigation actions, or if you wanted to reopen it and say, hey, I want to add some text, we're aware there's a new issue that has happened, say wildfire happened or whatever it is, tsunami, we're not going to have that, so we'll use that one. If it comes over the mountains to here.
Plan won't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A lot of other things went wrong. Yeah, and if you have any, if there's any locations that you think of over the next couple of days too, that you want to include that you're like, oh man, I forgot all about, a specific place on one of your roads or anything, just let us know. You can either email either one of us, and we can include that information.
All right, so I'll do a little talking now. We had a QR code to the community survey on the last slide, but these are some preliminary results. We've got over 20 respondents, which is great. So thanks for helping to promote that. But I just pulled out a couple of questions just to kind of get the juices flowing and talk about what we've seen so far in terms of responses. And in terms of hazards of highest concern, like you can see, obviously flooding jumps right out there. Fluvial erosion as well as inundation flooding. So those are kind of primary that we're going to want to focus on in this plan and also address in mitigation actions. And then invasive species, you see that is also on people's minds, as well as mud, which we've added as a special Warren category, and you will be the first town to address that.
That's a Vermont category.
It's a Vermont category, and it's real.
Are you saying mud?
Mud
Mud.
season.
Yep, mud season.
Emergency response in terms of people being isolated during the spring months is a legitimate hazard. I've heard some local officials have had to move and stay in Airbnbs part-time, so I've shared that story. The struggle is real during mud season.
We also have high winds.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me.
Yeah, so these are, and we're going to talk extensively about these categories tonight, but these are all the mandatory, not true. Knotweed in the meadow, somebody wrote that one in, but everything besides mud and the knotweed, which is covered in basin, these are required category that the state,
Right.
including the states have.
No,
to
I'm just
make.
curious that it got such a high score out of the 20
Yeah,
people. Sort
yeah.
of curious, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I
that's,
guess those microbursts.
Well, but when you start thinking about
Just
the
a
wind
lot
and
of our
stuff,
deadfall.
May I assist you?
please.
Not that I can do any better. Those seem to be
Yeah,
so
With the wind, I think back to the windstorm in 2019
Yeah, and there was
that took out, and then it was added the ice into it, and they took out everything.
Yeah.
Seems like in Addison County for the most part, and
Were you guys hit that in the December of 22
Yes.
windstorm?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know,
Where was I?
Yeah.
whack, we were 6 days without power
Yeah.
up there.
yep.
Oh, I think that was the one. That was one of the worst,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think
I
it was
think
like
so.
4 days up
Yeah.
in by us, maybe 3 or 4
Like
days.
Christmas time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
right around,
Yeah.
just after Christmas
Yeah.
or so.
Something like that,
Merry
yeah.
Christmas.
To rescue the fish.
All right, sorry, I interrupted.
no, you're good. It's really like the combination. Like you think of
Detail.
the high winds plus the ice, or extreme cold, and
Oh,
then you start
Or the
to
wet snow.
Yeah. Then problems, infrastructure and utilities really going to start worrying about those. Okay, so now we're talking about what the impacts of these disasters. What are people most concerned about? Obviously, loss of life is paramount and primary, but then there is definitely a high realization of the damage to roads and bridges and local infrastructure. People are aware of that in this town, as well as environmental resources. So these are the things again that we're going to be wanting to think about when we're making an implementation plan of what are we doing to address these disasters, and are they actually going to prevent loss of life? Are they going to improve the roads or bridges or prevent them from failing in the next event? Yeah, and then finally I pulled this one just because we had 24 respondents and a quarter of them have had a natural disaster impact their property. So I feel like I don't know, I'm not a statistician, I don't know if it's statistically significant, but I just pull it because it can be a sensitive topic, and people have, are, possibly in this meeting have been very impacted, their homes by disaster, and you know, the planning process, I think, should be as inclusive as possible, and we want to get diversity of ideas and make sure that the people in our community that are most vulnerable are being represented and protected in the actions that we propose. Okay, so now we're getting into more of the meat of tonight. This is the state's hazard mitigation categories and ranking.
Yeah, so this is the exact table we had to align. We have to align each one of these with. This is directly from the state hazard mitigation plan.
Does a copy of this go into the local hazard mitigation plan?
No,
This is
no,
what
we
we
don't
had to-
have to.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just didn't know if,
Nope.
So what goes in is your
Ours,
ranking.
yes, correct.
Yeah, your rank criteria. And to catch everybody up to speed is the hazard planning team, your local hazard planning team has already ranked these different hazards, you know, on the local level. So that's what you have in front of you is their scoring. And tonight's one of our primary goals is to check that, you know, with a broader community scale. And again, Keith, you know, as Keith said, this isn't the only time for input, but you know, it is a very good time. So even if you've already done this before and you've had, you know, a change of heart or you want to talk about, Keith will walk us through the different categories and talk more about the scoring, but this is a chance for us to adjust some of the scores if we want. And, you know, in the packet that you have, I'll just let you know, you have the scorecard, the actual matrix, but then if you flip over, I guess it describes the scoring, which we'll go over. But then on the very back, it shows you really like the town prioritization. So, you know, if somebody scores greater than a 10, it's considered a worse threat. And that's what the plan's really going to focus on in terms of hazard description and also mitigation. And then there's that score of 6 to 10, and that's more of your moderate threats. And if you got below a 6, you see drought and hail. It's a lower likelihood, lower potential. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And won't, you know, continue to get worse and impact the community, but it's just not going to be a primary focus in the plan. So that's sort of like the bigger picture, you know. Keith, you want to just take it from here?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so on the page,
Second.
yeah, okay, everybody's got one. Okay, yeah, on the second page. So if you look at, we've got the list of just that it perfectly aligns, you know, for fluvial erosion, inundation, flooding, ice, snow, all the different hazard types. The probability list, so the first one, the table 4, describes what the probability is. So we'll stick with each column. It'll be easier this way than jumping back and forth for each different hazard type. So because each one is scored different, and we didn't develop the scoring thing. This was done by the state when they did their hazard mitigation.
There's mine.
Exactly, it's clear as mud. So it's a lot easier to just stick with one column when discussing, so everybody remembers exactly how that's scored. Yeah, so 4 and above is highly likely, so greater than 75% chance in any given calendar year. 3 is pretty broad, from a 10 to a 75% chance. And in at least one chance of in the next 10 years. 2 is occasional, so a 1 to 10% chance in any year, or at least one chance for every 100 years. So it'd be like the 1 in 100 flood. And 1 is less than 1% chance in any given year. So more like your 1,000-year storm type idea.
Our 100-year floods are what now? Biannual?
2 to 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look through most of these, you know, I thought it was actually scored very realistically, you know, from your team. You know, obviously fluvial erosion, we generally see an event somewhere in the county every year, if not multiple. You know, because that's just erosional, you know, basically your flash flood. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where it's eating culverts, you know, especially with our dirt road infrastructure and our topography, we see this every year. So, you know, that's very likely. Inundation flooding, it's a little less common, but still pretty common. You know, that's where the waters actually come up into structures. You actually have the standing or flowing water, but not quite at the same rate as the flash flooding. Ice storms, you know, once every 10 years, I think that's pretty realistic for a 3. We definitely, I would say, we see at least some level of ice storm every 3 years, and the same with for snow. That's more of an extreme snow event, so they're thinking more in the overall description of that. It's like greater than 30 inches in any one storm, so it's your larger storm events.
Yeah.
We are seeing more of those of the wet snow type, which obviously takes out a lot of power. A lot
I
of
wish we got more of the 30 plus inches.
yeah, of dry powdery snow.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
And then extreme wind, anything greater than 35 mile an hour is considered a high wind in Vermont.
We get lots of that.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
50, 55.
Yeah, actually, we're starting to see. Well, we've been seeing records even in the last couple of years of where we're breaking the record, even at like
Yeah.
Burlington Airport for
Right.
Yeah.
highest recorded wind speed in Vermont history type
Wow.
of stuff. I think it was this last winter. Up on Camel's Hump, some of them, they were saying that it was. They thought it might have been the highest recorded ever. You know, nobody was up there to take it, but yeah,
I've been up
almost
there
made me
when
want
it,
to go.
like, it felt like it was going to blow you off the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting like that 70 plus.
Yeah, that's
You
no
know.
fun.
Good
Lot of
times.
crampons, not so.
Yeah, so come on, that's good time. Yeah, severe cold,
Wait, you skipped heat.
sorry, heat. For our region, anything, the heat's a little tougher because it depends on what the humidity is, but often the National Weather Service considers in our region over 85 degrees, actually a high heat warning.
I concur.
Yeah, most areas use 90 degrees, but due to our humidity and the way actually humidity gets trapped into the mountain valleys, it actually creates a little more of a almost like a greenhouse effect,
Yeah.
and it makes it worse.
So the humidity exacerbates the effects of the heat.
Right.
Yes.
So a lower temperature is still as dangerous as
Yeah.
Exactly.
90 elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That 85 can often be just as dangerous as 90 if you were over on the lake or something. Even.
Yeah.
Because Burlington uses 90, but they have us use 85.
They have wind.
Yeah, exactly. They usually have some breeze then off the lake. Cold. Cold's like -10 or lower, and especially with wind chill. And it's usually more for, in our region, it's often either if there's a power outage, so then,
Right.
that cold is going to be real problematic, or with the homeless
Oh.
population. If you have any homeless population, anybody who doesn't have anywhere to go to get out of that.
We
Drought.
used to have
What's it?
below, 40 below regularly,
Yeah.
I'd say 20 years ago. So this seems like tropical.
Yeah.
We,
I agree.
I don't know whether we had as many homeless, but that's,
No, we definitely didn't have so many homeless.
But we
That's-
did have a lot more very cold temperatures.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah, we
agree.
get there and stay there.
yeah.
Yeah.
For
I
all of
mean,
January.
30 below was every winter, there was at least some part of it was that.
Yeah, you'd have at least a week or two, a solid
Yeah.
stretch. Heck yeah.
But you add the wind
But even,
to our cold too,
Right.
and it's brutal.
Brutal.
If you're out in it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should house them. Sorry.
Yeah. Drought is, I'm trying to remember this one because we don't actually have it very often. I think it's 20 days, if I remember correctly. It's 20 days without rain. And then that's, it scales up from there of like, that would be a class 2 drought. If it continues on, for another 10 days, usually it's based off of your soil water content. That starts ratcheting up. We almost never get to like a class 4 drought. We get more of what's called flash droughts. So where you could have that spring of 23, actually just before the rain started that didn't stop and caused the flood. It rained once right at about the 1st of May and then didn't rain again until the beginning of June. So we don't, occasionally you could get drought conditions where people are having water problems with water wells, that sort of thing. I know Cabot actually, they had about 15 years ago, they had said they had one where they actually had to use the municipal water in town and actually provide water to some of the outer residents. Anybody could come in and fill up. Yeah, I think they said it was like late 2010s or so. It doesn't happen very often, you know, that we get that very impactful drought. Landslides, definitely got those. Yeah, I was gonna say Sugar Bush Access Road.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we have them right on Brook Road now.
yeah.
It's, and the state won't let us do
Anything.
anything to, you know, it's gonna take out someone's house one of these times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Or the flooding will.
The flooding
Yeah.
will because of
Because
the
of log
mess.
jams.
Yeah,
The logs,
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they won't let us clean any of that up.
because they said
The
it's
log jams,
natural.
you can do some stuff with.
Not
Well, you
they
can't
are.
remove it.
Yeah.
Why?
Because you can't remove the woody debris because
Yeah.
it slows down the water. But you can cut up. You can cut the logs up into smaller sizes.
Not great in our
Oh,
when I
they
asked
just-
them, and they came out.
Did they say you couldn't do that? Because I was told we could do that. Because
I mean,
I
I'm
asked,
happy
I've
to
asked
come
about
out
it
again.
If they're
'cause-
Okay,
small,
well, I'll-
they just move more easily and end up downstream and.
But
Well,
they
they-
wouldn't
they'll
block
pass
the
through.
culverts. What
Exactly,
they do is
right.
they totally span the culverts.
like they
and
said we can't
get like
take
3 or
Well,
4
the-
of them, right, or a bridge, and then
I'll-
You
smaller
Stumps
culverts.
out.
Pretty small.
The
if
root
you
system.
don't
Yeah.
end up blocking the culvert.
No, that's the problem. Because we had the ice jam behind Tractor Supply this year, and I got the answer from we could cut that up. You know, obviously it's in the middle of winter, and you're like, yeah, nobody's going in the
Yeah.
water right,
Right.
now to do that.
I wonder
But
if it's case by case.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure
But
is.
Might be.
It's like
Is that something that we can address through this plan?
you could, I
Or a
mean,
question
you could
that
turn
we
it.
Probably
find
not, but
answers.
I can try to follow up and get us a better
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, the
Right.
whole dam situation is, I don't know whether where that fits into this.
I definitely want to talk about that though.
Yeah,
It's-
I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
You know-
it's changing everything right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever you think is today, it's gonna be different in another month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And month by month, I'm seeing a difference in my property.
Okay.
Let's make sure we come back to that. I want to talk about it too.
And in terms of like setting a goal to address woody debris so it doesn't clog your
Right.
culverts, I mean, that
Right.
could definitely be in the plan, coordinating with the
Yeah.
river scientists. You
Yeah.
know, it just
Yeah.
might, I think we keep saying it's like, you know, it might not immediately, this is the list of longer term,
Yeah.
you know, some shorter and some longer term. You can put dates and responsible parties on it and partners and stuff, but we're not making a regulatory document, you know, it's yeah, more of a vision.
It's a guide.
But
Yes.
it can help you leverage funding, you know,
Yeah.
for sure.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
give a little bit more weight to your projects or your broader goals. So, it, you know, pairs nicely with a town plan in terms of like how you think about using it.
Because like in that example, it's actually changing the direction of the river.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because
It's,
there's that
it's
much.
forcing it
Yeah.
to the other
Right.
bank or so,
Yeah.
creating more erosional problems.
Yeah, which then is getting closer to the roadway.
Tell them we're lowering the phosphorus.
Yeah.
Armoring this thing.
You got money for that.
We got money for that.
It's affecting the fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wildfires, you know, luckily we generally don't see large wildfires in this area. You know, knock on wood.
Why is it a 3?
Yeah.
Do we?
I was curious about that.
I mean, do we actually see them that often?
There,
And is this for the county or for our?
no, this is for your town.
Warren.
This is for Warren.
Carolina.
We do see them. There was one in Northfield last year.
One was it last year or the year before the one that went up on Bear Mountain.
Yeah.
One chance in the next 10 years is a 3.
Yeah, I mean, they,
Yeah.
And a wildfire also depends
Jumps
on
to 100
acreage.
after that.
exactly.
So you can have a brush fire, but that's different than a wildfire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's it with the, you know, national forest or anything up there. You know, if somebody wasn't recreating responsibly, you know, you definitely have some risk there of, you know, something moving into your community from, and being outside of, especially if you had a really dry spring or something like that again. Usually our shoulder seasons and, you know, 95% of all wildfires are started by humans. You know, actually it's higher than it's like 97%.
Just
so.
the amount of vegetation we have increases our risk, so even if
Yeah,
we
yeah,
haven't had
exactly.
one, if something should start.
Yeah, if you just have those
Could be
dry
allowed.
conditions, it doesn't take much for it
Yeah.
to, especially like in New Jersey this year, you know, if you get some good winds at the same time,
Yeah.
it can move fast. Earthquakes, you know, that's a 2. we get them. They generally don't cause, much damage. Pretty minimal.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm trying to think what the most damage I've ever heard of from an earthquake in Vermont.
I mean, there was the one that was down there, Brattleboro, which was felt here.
It was felt, but it
You
didn't.
did, maybe
Like-
shaking a
like
few plates up
fret-
the
Threats
shelf,
to
but
But it's
Yeah.
what it does under the ground.
yeah.
It's what you can't see.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody having foundational cracks or anything like that, but.
how can you prove that?
Well, yeah, that'd
You know
be a
what I
tough
mean?
one. I mean,
Yeah.
if it was a newer construction,
True.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly, maybe.
Maybe.
It's always hard to know why
Yeah.
a foundation cracks.
Yeah. Invasive species, obviously we have those, we have emerald ash borer,
Knotweed.
knotweed,
Well, we got plenty of them.
giant hogweed, chervil. Yeah, there's plenty.
Chervil, yeah.
The chervil is otherwise known as the poison parsnip, is that
Yes, yeah.
No, but no,
right? No?
Is that,
the poison parsnip is yellow.
Oh, that's.
okay, the
And
chervil is
and
white.
It's white, right,
Yes.
and like the road crew spread all the chervil seed from out west all along Route 100. And it's just hideous. It'll be, in another 2 weeks, the whole area from Granville up will be solid white. And that's the chervil, not the.
Right.
Not Queen Anne's lace or anything.
No,
No,
not
it looks sort of like a.
Yeah, it looks
Poison
similar to
parsnip
Queen's
is a-
lace.
Yeah.
is similar too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yellow, yeah,
But
that's right.
it was a seed that's under control out west, but it has no
Predator or whatever.
way of taming itself.
No, nothing to eat it.
No.
Huh.
But it's quite horrible.
What
Yeah.
is the, what does it do?
It just chokes out everything else.
Right, yeah.
Like the
It's a
knotweed?
phytotoxin too?
Well, the yellow is the
Yeah,
yellow
the
can
parsnip.
if you get it on you, you can get a rash.
Yeah.
I side my knotweed, or I was for a while. I wasn't making any headway. I mean, I have knotweed, I have chervil, I have Bishop Sweet. I have a good collection of.
All right.
You could have an educational program in the backyard
Right.
about invasives.
Yeah, probably.
It doesn't seem too real much.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't have the yellow. I don't have the parsnip. That's more in Addison County. It's hardly in Washington, or it's hardly in the Route 100 corridor at all. Or at least I haven't seen it. But if you go over and go up 116, it's just solid on there.
Okay. And down on the Winooski, you'll find some of the giant hogweed. There's some of that growing down
that's
there.
pretty minor here. I mean, I've got a couple of them, but not.
Yeah.
It's not like.
Because that one's really phototoxic. Like,
Yeah.
it'll make the flesh fall off if you get the sap on it.
Oh.
It's really
I
bad
mean, there's
stuff.
poison ivy too, which is
Yes.
very toxic. And there's
Is
a
that
lot of
an
that in
invasive?
Winooski.
I always imagined poison ivy was
An
native.
ivy.
It looks different all the
Yeah.
time. I think it's a very hard thing to identify.
Poisonous oak, sumac.
But is
Yeah.
it native?
Poison ivy?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I
Like a
think.
nuisance species.
But it's-
Yeah, but a lot of those things are, because of climate change, are actually, even if
Right.
they're native, they're now taking up more of the
I see.
overall
They're
ecosystem.
invading everybody
Choke.
else's territory.
Exactly,
out, yeah.
exactly. And then infectious disease outbreak. So, obviously we just had
COVID.
One of
COVID.
those.
There's the bird flu, equine encephalitis. There's multiple different invasives that are around, even if they're not currently in outbreak stage. And then hail. We do get hail, obviously, but generally we don't get true damaging hail. At least in the level of like the Plain States, where it will break windows, damage homes, that sort of thing.
We do have a row for mud, but you can't see.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a row for mud, but it didn't fit on our slide. It's on the
Not that I know of.
yes.
That got a full.
And like this last winter wasn't
I think so.
that bad for mud, for mud season conditions, because it did get cold and stay cold. But the previous couple winters, we
3 months.
yeah, where you could have anywhere from 3 to 6. Middlesex, when we did theirs, they'd had 6 mud seasons. And that directly impacts the community, especially in emergency response. You know, it's really hard to, if you can't barely drive through the road, the fire truck isn't gonna do any better.
Yeah.
And may often even do worse, you know, so that emergency response and access to homes is definitely being impacted, so. And so that's running through all the probabilities, you know, and understand what the different hazard impacts are. If anybody has any disagreements with, you know,
Wanna do that?
you think the probability of any of these happening, you know, you can definitely mention that, or we can move on to.
There isn't much of anywhere to go. Like, is it
There's
4?
one, there's one that I would lower, but I'm afraid to, because then it might, you know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we'll have earthquakes, like knocking the buildings down if I go lower.
One that's, you can always
that the
change, you know, one of these other,
And it's just
But there is a fault line.
negligible, isolated occurrences of minor property and environmental damage. But whatever. Not-
so then
not
if you
important.
look down to the infrastructure impacts, that's the next column, the infrastructure, and it goes through disastrous, severe, moderate, or minor, and it kind of gives you a little definition of what each one of those is. So disastrous, you know, loss of roads, bridges, homes, gonna take extensive replacement or rebuilding. Severe would be community-wide, but 2 to 5 days for loss of use, and then you'd be back to basically to normal. Moderate is 1 to 2 days, and then minor is possibly a temporary loss of use or slightly damaged. So after look, you know, discussing that list, is there any of those scores looking down through the infrastructure that you disagree with, think should be changed, you know, increased, lowered?
3.5? What, how do we get the halves?
The halves
up with that old
were, when we had multiple people and everybody's voting different, you're like, yeah, we'll go with 3.5.
Okay.
We're not going
Consent-
down to quarters.
consensus.
I'm probably at a
We're not
3.5
quarters.
too, because I was like, well, 4 could be good.
I mean, we go to from 2 to 5 day loss of use to like nobody's going
Yeah.
anywhere for months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a valid 3.5.
Yeah.
3 3/4.
So if everybody's in agreement with that,
Well,
or if you want to,
I might need a little longer to review if
Okay.
you genuinely want to know my thoughts.
We can also
Nope.
modify.
We can
it.
modify later.
Okay.
If you
Yeah.
wanna take the-
Yeah, exactly.
I
It's a
trust your
bedside reading.
judgment here. And is this part of the survey? Or was this something you guys did in your meeting?
we did this
Yeah.
in
In your
their
meetings.
meeting. This isn't from the survey.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll move on to the life column, which it has its own scoring, and the next one down there, the life safety issues. So 4 is a community-wide hospitalizations or fatalities. So there'd be multiple, or a lot of people. 3 is multiple hospitalizations or fatality. 2 would be occasional hospitalizations due to some injuries, and 1 would just be minor scrapes or injuries.
So just right off the bat, the only one I think I don't understand is, oh no, I'm in the wrong column. Never mind.
And then the next column is the economic impacts. So 1 is, we'll do this one backwards, I guess. 1 is less than $10,000 in damages. Can generally be handled through just the town budget. 2 would be $10,000 to $100,000, may require assistance for uninsured or a large impact to the local budget. 3 would be $100,000 to $1 million. Obviously requests for assistance either from the state or FEMA eligible, and 4 would be greater than $1 million. All town resources are going to be used, state resources are going to be used, and possibly may even have like National Guard or definitely having to call on outside resources to get the community back.
Sorry,
So that'd be like what Plainfield happened.
I'm needing a little help here, going back to. So the first category, the probability, we're just generally saying, yeah, from our experience, from what we're seeing in the world, this is the likelihood it's gonna happen. Then when we get to the potential impact, we're saying because we're likely to have a,
So, well, here,
when
I'll
an
give you real
event
quick.
happens.
Yeah.
but what
So
size
the-
event? I mean, you know.
When a severe event happens.
Yeah, so like the potential impacts, those four go together to make the overall average score.
Right, I
And
know.
then that's just multiplied by that.
I get
But
that.
she
Okay.
means
I'm
like
just saying,
what
like-
the potential impact of snow on a regular basis is just something we pay
Yeah,
for.
so it's like
Yeah.
severe snow event.
so-
with-
Yeah, like a
If we
blizzard,
had a
like so greater than
severe
30,
flood,
36
Yeah.
How
inches.
much would
and
it
there are
cost
some
us, or
parameters that maybe
severe-
Keith has off the top of his head
Yeah.
for some of these events, you know, in terms
Yeah,
of like,
yeah, that's it. So like that severe snow would be, we get a blizzard greater, like 30 inches of snowfall in just one storm. So over a day, day and a half.
Or the drought for 30
Yeah.
days, like you
Yeah.
were
Exactly.
saying.
or
So like,
extreme heat, extreme cold.
Yeah, like extreme rain, it would be, an extreme rain event is generally considered anything that's greater than 2 inches
Summer.
per hour that lasts for multiple hours. So you're thinking like 5 inches, 5 inches of rain or greater.
Like
If it's rain on snow, it could be 3 inches. You know, none of these are like, there's no straight hard for every single one. It's like a rain on snow.
so
Yeah.
but when one of
3
those
inches.
severe things happens,
Exactly.
the potential impact is defined as such.
Right.
Yeah.
Distinct
So
from
what would
the
ice
probability.
do?
Ice generally is power lines,
Oh,
is what
okay.
you see.
Yeah.
If it was a really bad, trees falling over, so trees
I
could
mean,
be
there was that ice storm that was in Canada that was, came
Exactly.
down, and that was
massive.
Yeah.
the year after there was a flood where there was no canopy up on Lincoln Mountain.
That was 99, right? The flood of
Yeah.
99 and the ice storm of
98.
98.
Yeah.
The
The
flood
ice
was
storm
in
in
'98,
99.
and
Oh.
but the ice storm was in '97, and that's
Oh.
when it came. That flood was at the very end of June. It was when the Ben Jerry Festival was going on, and I had 18 inches in my house. And I did get FEMA money.
But we partied anyway, Dorothy.
Well, I didn't.
Sorry. But the Ben and Jerry's festival did.
Yeah. They blamed that very localized flooding on the lack of the canopy up on Lincoln Mountain, because Lincoln and Warren were the only places that really got hit
Okay.
on that, and the ice storm had taken out a lot of trees in January, so that
So there wasn't
it's
as
like
much.
it's like where you have that the ice was doing one thing that then cascaded into a flooding event 6 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about that, but doesn't pertain to this. Was it that there were no leaves and the trees weren't soaking up water, or they weren't diffusing the?
Right.
There was just, it was just coming straight off the mountain. Because there was so
Maybe some
much,
of both.
Wasn't
Kind of like when it
right.
rains in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because they are one of the largest storage of our water system.
Exactly.
So interesting.
Did your
yeah,
question
it
get
just
answered
wasn't,
well?
it just wasn't, the sponge wasn't working.
Sort of.
The sponge wasn't working.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Is it
It
mostly
is
about
what
the
it is. I
snow?
don't think it.
Was it mostly about the snow one, or just in general?
It was,
No, I was just trying to understand, what level of fluvial erosion or flooding we're talking about is gonna have the highest, is gonna cost us over $1 million. Like,
Irene,
if we get some flooding, inundation
I mean,
flooding,
You look at what we
If
the
got.
isn't
covered bridge
necessarily
goes
over.
out and you'll have fluvial,
it could be that end. I've just, never mind.
Yeah.
We've got
No,
the worst case scenario in all
it's-
this is what
exactly.
we're saying.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. It's not.
the greatest.
It's
the
not the
greatest
best.
potential.
As my 14-year-old would say, that's not the best.
It's not-
I mean, how much did Facein have
Okay.
last year when they had all the roads washed out?
To be honest, I don't know the total
it still looks
cost,
horrible up
but
there.
I will guarantee it's. Oh no, they lost 2 bridges. So right there, that's
$5 million.
Yeah, $5 million probably would be
Yeah.
a pretty safe. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
moving
Uh,
along.
that.
Plainfield's like
Yep.
30.
Yeah,
you know.
Million?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a little bit, I think,
30,
looking at the
close to
historic thing,
25.
also thinking
Yeah,
about
they
like
did get
climate
crushed.
change and future development.
If we put it on
What's
demographics.
changed from the last storm,
Yeah.
the last storm
So-
before that.
But that is
That's
sort of
the
the
source of
process of like
Yeah.
the conversation is the important of like what do we think has happened, what do we should be expecting,
Right.
what degree. So I mean, the question is hits at the heart of it. I think of like what are we actually talking about here in terms
Right,
of
right.
scale of some of these. So
Yeah, and what level of risk?
This is one of those really feel-good conversations.
Yes, the way I like to spend a Sunday
I
evening.
wonder why I don't sleep sometimes.
I have
We're
the job of doom
laughing
and
though.
gloom.
Yeah,
All right, keep us going.
Okay, environmental impact. Well, so that was the economic impact. So if you look through that column, you know, if there's anything you disagree with or think should be either raised or lowered, you know, I mean, looking at these prices, one culvert failure can easily pitch you at a number 3 for
Yeah.
one culvert at the cost of everything today. Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Maybe these costs need to be.
That's yeah. I'm like these are
For
2023, but they
inflation.
probably developed these in 2021 or 2, and prices have moved up a lot.
2001.
Yeah. Okay, so then environmental impacts. One is negligible, so just short-term impacts, low cleanup costs. 2 is moderate, so a temporary redirection of municipal resources, or minor, I mean, and then moderate cleanup costs. 3, a moderate impact would be extended redirection of local resources, impacts to normal operations or high cleanup costs, and 4 would be major. Long-term recovery efforts could take years for full recovery or permanent loss of use. And that's for environment. Yeah, I guess to give that some level of scale, you know, like seeing what happened in North Carolina where it totally scoured out riverbeds, so that would be a major environmental impact, obviously. You know, those streams aren't going to support much aquatic life for a considerable amount of time because it's going to have to rebuild that entire ecosystem. You know, so that'd be your most major, you know, and then scale that down from there.
it's interesting that a 3.5 for wildfire.
Yeah.
I was thinking on that. Seems like that could be pretty
Well,
devastating. in a
yeah,
lot
I'm
of
curious
ways
because
back to the
some people
environment.
make the argument that wildfires can be regenerative to a forest. So maybe it isn't completely a loss if there is a fire in some part of the, I don't really know. Hypothesizing here.
I don't remember why we split 3.5 on that.
Do you remember?
I didn't take notes.
I think I did.
I wrote it down, but I didn't take
took
notes.
notes, not on that.
So is the Forest Service gonna do something different as a result of Trump? I mean,
Maybe.
can anybody
Do they want them to? Yes. Yes, they want them to log more.
Yeah, so that changes
Exactly. The
way
risk.
that's all handled and whatever's going on, yes.
There's also been, they've still been doing prescribed burns in the
Yes.
state, so.
Yeah. Yeah, they have still been doing prescribed burns in the national forest, which, you know, obviously, if they believe that there's that much woody debris on the first floor, then that's a good thing, you know, where you can get rid of it in a controlled manner. Generally, we don't see the real destructive wildfires here in the east because we don't hit that level of dryness where you could get a ground fire. Our forest just isn't that style of forest. You know, it's not a ponderosa pine forest or something like they have out west, where those trees actually, you know, and also their full climate is totally different. So
Matchsticks.
yeah. I mean, if you're out there in the summertime and you can't light a fire with one match, there's
Right.
something wrong with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
you know, we generally don't get to those level of conditions. Maybe in small microclimate areas, but not as a forest area as a whole. So I'd be very surprised to ever see a really bad wildfire. I mean, historically, even when you look through the historical record, most of the really bad wildfires in the east were directly related to timber operations. You know, where somebody did a huge clear cut and then left so much debris behind, and that's what actually burned was a couple years later. You know,
I mean, you'd think that if Canada keeps having these fires, that we would. I mean, and why is
Eventually.
their fire problems
Well,
more significant than ours?
most of that is in the boreal forest.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going like further up north of Montreal, so you're getting into that full boreal forest, and that forest is actually changing. So in a lot of areas that it's extremely stressed due to climate change, you know, because like I live in East Montpelier and I can see the forest changing because they timbered the property I bought we bought 4 years ago, and the forest that's growing back is not the forest that was there. It's got red oak in it. It's you know, got shagbark hickory, a lot more. You know, it was a spruce and white pine forest, and it's not coming back. You know, it's about 50-50 now, but you're seeing a lot of those new species moving in, and that's why Canada's burning at that level is that they have been having a little more drought conditions because the actual jet stream is moving away from them. So they're having more drought conditions at the same time that those forests are also starting to die and are very stressed. So they're going to probably continue to have those. Hopefully they stay there. I mean, not that we're not going to be impacted by the air quality from it,
Yeah.
but I personally don't expect to see those in our area unless we start, you know, clear cutting the national forest and doing some really stupid ideas.
More camping down there in Austin Hollow.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
There's
I think there's more
Somewhere
homeless
exists.
people living down there now than they used to. And I don't know
There's
how
more
much of
homeless
them,
people.
whether they're staying for 2 weeks like they're supposed to, or whether they're there permanently. I don't know, but I think there's some significant.
They're there through the summer.
Yeah.
But are there some of them were there in the winter too, weren't they?
There wasn't many because there wasn't much foot traffic in and out of there, so
Okay.
I don't think they plow it, do they?
now they don't plow it either, so
Yeah.
they plow the one driveway and that's the
Is that off 55? Is that what you're talking about?
100.
100.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
before
Austin
the.
Hollow and Stetson
Okay,
Hollow.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, there's the one house down there and then there's a house further up that Devin probably partied at, but
I don't think so, because I
It's
don't
old
remember
enough.
it.
it sits empty and then the rest of the house
Do
is
you keep
good.
an eye on the camping down there?
Try to.
Yeah.
National Forest Service does too.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody has, you know, as after this meeting, you know, if you have anything as you sit and think about this, you know, where you're like, hey, I think one of the scores, you know, should be changed or anything, let us know. We can have a discussion with the planning team and, you know, making adjustments that everybody deems necessary.
All right.
If you guys felt that our scores were off, would you make recommendations to us?
I mean, it's
We
really-
could. I mean, I don't. It's not
Yeah.
going to make
Okay,
it-
okay.
To be honest, it doesn't make this part doesn't actually make a difference. It's trying to come up with a framework of like what should you focus
Got
on
it.
instead of trying to focus on everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What do you want to
yeah,
dial?
You can't really be
your
wrong,
plan.
because it's
Right.
like what you
Yeah,
all.
there's no wrong
It is
answers.
your opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Perception.
It's the community's opinion, so that's the conversation is
Okay.
amongst you all.
yeah.
And then, like he said, that sets us up for the last few slides that we have here. And maybe we'll
Yep.
keep cruising because I know we said till
Yep.
7:30.
Yeah.
If you have other business,
We're very chatty.
We don't.
okay, that's fine.
So
Yep.
we.
If we go over a
Yeah,
little bit,
totally.
okay, all right. So, should we? Is anybody
We-
need a break? We might just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
All right, sounds good. I think you set this
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's mitigation actions and then there's preparedness actions. So mitigation action is like an actual project. If you want to remove a dam, stream bank stabilization, those sort of things, that's an actual mitigation action. So you're physically doing something. Preparedness actions are if you're doing something to improve your emergency response. So, you know, it's more that planning piece or, you know, like a warning system, you know, say radio upgrades for the fire department, something like that. That's a preparedness action. So just want to
Would creating a cooling center be a preparedness action or a mitigation
No.
action?
technically that's a preparedness action.
Okay.
even though it definitely does help you in your response.
Right,
You know,
I was just curious.
because you didn't
You'd have to
stop you
prepare
didn't
for
stop
it,
the
though.
heat, so
Yeah.
you're preparing for the heat.
I see.
You know, it's that concept.
I definitely get a little bit confused when it comes to that kind of like the
Heck yeah.
or outreach. That's another one I was going to ask you about. Is what would community outreach be?
That'd be a preparedness action.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so more examples. I can cover.
If there's
this
no
one.
engineer involved,
Okay.
it's a preparedness action. If
So
you've got
it's okay
engineers,
if there's some
it's a
confusion
mitigation.
here. These are some
What's the
possible.
communications engineer?
I know. You can
Right.
still get.
Oh yeah. So some of these kind of, MA is the mitigation action, PA preparedness action. Some of these examples spawned from our first conversation. Some of them were just examples that I pulled from maybe another town plan, or the resilience hub. I think is a few other towns have been thinking about that, and that actually may be both preparedness and mitigation. But you need a mitigation action for each of the hazards. I think that's the big takeaway. So this is to really get the conversation going, because that's kind of like part 2 of tonight is, if there are specific mitigation actions or locations that people have, we want that information included in the plan, and there is time beyond tonight to get that information to us. But we are essentially, the plan, the heart of the plan will be this mitigation action table, and that's what we're going to look at in 5 years from now and say, where are we at with these projects, and what's carrying over to the 2025 plan from 2019. We have some of that, and then what are the new things that we want to tackle in the next 5 years. So this is sort of the what are we doing part. And again, for leveraging grant funds, if you can say this project was in the local hazard mitigation plan, it just gives it that extra weight, because they know the community's already behind it. It's sort of like a pre-approval stamp on itself. It wasn't just one person's idea.
All
So-
the people sitting on this table.
all the people. Well, we got the survey going. We're gonna have
Yeah.
another public meeting, but yes, yeah.
Where is the survey?
Survey
How come
is
I didn't see the
online.
survey?
It was at town meeting. QR code.
It also went out, didn't it go out?
Yeah, I put it out on
Yeah.
the front porch forum a couple times.
I don't.
It was in the Valley Recorder.
I didn't know anything about it.
So we're gonna get the
Yeah,
survey
we'll
out.
get it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to get the survey out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And pay
But I don't
attention
like
for it.
surveys, so,
So you can
It's a
email
short
us.
one.
You can email us directly too.
what?
You
Well-
can email us directly.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I'm
or
just
kind
saying,
of stuff.
And you're giving your.
And let's
Right.
talk about it now too. Let us know when you're ready, because
Yes.
I'm sure we have locations.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see anything about the dam in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's get into that. This is I don't
Let's
really
do it.
need to read through this, but from reviewing your town plan, I just wanted to pull out the hazard mitigation threads. And again, there's already ideas for projects in the town plan. Obviously, we have them in our heads here too, but I just wanted to kind of link the two planning documents to each other and think about how to parallel them and complement each other, so they're not just these separate, isolated documents. So now we're gonna brainstorm.
So, what about your dam?
Yeah, let's talk dams.
You're talking
Well,
about the timber crib one?
Yeah.
Probably in the 1980s, there was riprap put along all the way from the dam up past where I live, which is probably a quarter of a mile up from the dam, a little more than that, up from the dam, on both sides of the river. Now that's all falling in, and there was that point when the Army Corps was going to take the dam out for $1 million, and I said, fine, if you just have a knotweed mitigation part of it, because they were so proud of how they're going to take all this gravel, and I said, this is a knotweed spreading project. So that sort of got voted down, and the Army Corps was going to plant this whole riparian buffer. They were so proud of all these plants they were going to put in, but you wouldn't be able to grow anything in there because of the amount of knotweed that was there. So that was a bogus offer, and there's a lot of knotweed all along this stretch. And there's also, I have planted a whole riparian buffer along, and that's all falling into the river now. I have a lot of willow and alder and silver maples that are falling in to the river now. And this was probably put in 10 years ago. Soon after Irene, that was when I put a whole lot of energy into my property, build a berm, which was hard to build. I mean, it was hard to get permission to build it.
Heck yeah.
But it's beautiful, and I had beautiful stone steps that went down. I've lost the bottom 5 in the last year. Basically because as the dam goes out, it's eroding all the riprap. It's eroding my stairs. It's eroding my riparian buffer. So I've lost a lot of the effort that I put into my property as fluvial mitigation kinds of endeavors, following best practices and suggestions of this is what you need to do to protect your banks. This is what you blah blah blah. So I feel like, what the hell, you know, it's all going down, and
The beavers haven't helped either.
the beavers did another major.
So Dorothy, the dam is forcing the river to widen itself.
But it's also getting faster.
It's getting
And
faster.
and so when it's going through, it's going through with more velocity.
You mean the dam coming down?
No, I mean the water coming down is not. I mean, when I first bought my property in 1970, the water was over my head in my swimming hole behind. Now it's up to about here, and that has to do with
Oh, because it's filling in
'Cause
with
it's filling in
sediment.
filled in with sediment,
Yeah.
and it's also lower.
Right.
I mean, it was a mill pond, and then there was when Mac was running it doing power, it never got as high as it was when I first moved there, which was over my head. It was more like here, and I have a wonderful little swimming hole. Still will cool you down on a July day when you've just been doing a ton of yard work, and so I feel like because I have more than 55-year experience of keeping track of this land, that I can speak to the changes in the river, and I was responsible for getting all the signatures to get the riprap in the 80s done. And once that was done, then they were not supposed to take out any gravel. And the only time they've taken out gravel, which is after Irene and after the '98 flood, there's a, as Barry Cahoon called it, a shit out of luck culvert. And it can't get, right now the shit out of luck culvert has a bathtub sort of wedged right at the bottom of it right now. I don't know whether any of you have noticed that bathtub, but it's, have you seen it? Yeah.
I'm so curious what you're talking about. But
You know, I don't know whether it's just this year or if it was there before, but I was doing green up, so I walked around and I could, oh, it's that.
Yeah.
So, and this dam also affects our ability to sort of move forward and make improvements on the covered bridge, because we know that it's eroding and slowly breaking up, but we don't know when, and we don't know what the river will look like until it's gone.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about repairing abutments and looking to see if there's some undercutting of those abutments, but if we get a significant flood event and the dam is taken out, that whole river channel is going to change. So
Oh, yeah.
any repairs we make now may be totally fruits.
Yeah. Yeah, you would definitely.
I mean, it's changing every month now.
Okay.
So Dorothy, are you in agreement that it would be a good idea to take the dam out? What are your thoughts on
I mean,
what
I always
should
sort
be
of
done?
wanted it fixed.
You want it fixed.
I want the
They
dam.
won't let us do that.
I want the dam to be there.
And I don't believe
Oh,
that's.
nobody's going to let us
I know
Yeah,
that,
do
but
that.
that's,
you-
you asked me what did I want.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
You
I did.
could.
I appreciate you telling us.
Fix it, but you're not going to find any public money that's going
Right.
to be able to help that.
There
Well, I
weren't
don't
even,
even
it
think
wasn't even a
A&R
question of
would let
public
us.
money, it was
I don't
more
think
like
they'll
no
let us.
permission.
I'm pretty
A&R
sure we
wouldn't
looked
let us.
into.
Oh, yeah.
There was a large.
They won't let us take it
It's
down.
owned
They
by an
won't let us build it back
LLC.
up.
They tried. They
Okay.
wanted
I'm part of
desperately to
that.
fix it.
I'm part of the group that is the owning.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, it's Ellen Strauss, Dave Sellers,
Yeah.
myself, and I don't know, a couple other people.
And you tried to get permission to fix it.
Yeah,
didn't you?
we've gone to historic preservation weekend retreats, up in South Hero. We've done, got piles of paper on the subject
Okay.
and studies and.
Yeah, that's it. It's really, even like Calais and the towns with the large ponds and stuff. I mean, anything to do with the dam that isn't a removable
Can't touch it.
is really hard and really expensive. Because like Curtis Pond Dam,
I know.
they just got that one done. That was 1.2 million to fix that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Montpelier's in the same situation because their water supply is held by the Dickey Dam that's in
Yeah.
Berlin.
Right.
And they have to replace that dam, and that's probably going to be a $2 million project. You know,
Yeah.
That sounds cheap.
well, it's not a very
And
big
it's
dam.
the water supply, I mean, this dam is,
This is not a water supply.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
I don't know how it, I mean, I don't know, I don't think I would want $1 million project of the Army Corps coming and remodeling my yard.
sounds like they did a great job the first
I
time.
had, I went one day to the mailbox, and there was something this fat in there, talking about how they were gonna remodel my yard. And I hadn't had any wind of it. And it's just, I mean, it's always amazing how these town projects can go pretty far before any neighbor knows what's going on. But, yeah, there's a lot of knotweed that will all spread itself around when it goes out. I mean, it's already spreading itself. It can have a storm just like this weekend, and the roots are all sticking out right now. And they're breaking
Gonna
off.
kill 'em.
I just went down the Mad River on Mother's Day, and it was really fun, and watching all the knotweed
Yeah,
from here to
yeah.
Small Dog.
Need a lot of
Knotweed.
goats.
What?
A lot of goats.
Yeah.
We're
Do you
getting,
use hazard mitigation money for that?
For goats?
Yeah.
I don't think I can, but I wish I could.
I mean, they're doing a really
They
good
are.
job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's.
It's not cost effective, but they're doing a really good job. But I think that's one of those scenarios where the return on the investment is not calculated properly because we don't have a way to put a monetary value on our ecosystem.
I mean,
No, exactly. Exactly.
Betty Ann's not cutting the knotweed right now, and it's way higher than my knotweed, which I'm cutting. So, when you watch how high it comes up, if it's being cut twice a year,
Was he whacking it down?
he was whacking it down when she was alive, but when she died, there's been nobody cutting it.
Yeah.
So now the knotweed that she spent all the money paying
Right.
somebody to deal with is as big as if she had never done it. So you could have the goats here for 2 years and then gets bored with goats, and then you're right back where you
Right.
started. So it's
Well, I
fun.
think the idea with the goats was they're actually getting down and pulling it up.
They
right?
do.
They're
They
pulling-
choke it out such that the natural plants can then grow into a point where the knotweed can't take back over.
Well,
That's the idea.
I have, that was what was sort of going down with my riparian
go
buffer,
first?
but, and it is important to plant something in there,
Yeah.
for sure.
They've
And
planted
I
a whole
have
bunch of
less
trees.
knotweed, but it's also harder to get at it because you can't just go with
Yeah,
my
right.
sithe and cut
In
knotweed.
between the things
It's
you
between
planted.
everything, so your little hand scythe kind of going, and I
Yeah.
do both. I have one section where I just use, I have a big scythe that I cut, and then I have other sections where I put in all these willow stakes and dogwood and stuff like that, and I work around it. And I mean, it's gonna come up forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it increases the erosion in any event because that knotweed doesn't actually
Right.
have deep roots
No,
of
it
any
has
type,
not.
you know.
But I mean, I was not
It's not
impressed
holding
with
the
my
bank.
willow roots. If these things are now hanging out in the river,
Yeah.
Good point.
So how do we address that dam in a fashion that, like, in this plan?
Is it a high hazard dam?
No.
It's not a high hazard
No,
dam.
there's only,
No, no.
there is a high hazard dam here in the community, Blueberry Lake. Is
Yeah.
considered high hazard, which the definition for that is if the
If that
dam were to
goes out,
fail, would there be
the
any
impact
loss of
would be.
life? And there are, I think, it's only like, there's just a couple homes that
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
possibly impact,
Yeah.
but
Few.
that's the only
They
one.
arguably shouldn't have been built.
I mean, we
up.
can definitely call it out,
The ones that are like right on the lake.
On the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can we call it out? Sorry.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can call it out, and yeah, it's just a matter, and it might be having it. The call out might be to engage the community in a conversation on the solution. Is it removal? Is it fundraising?
But
or-
we've
or-
had these conversations, and
Yeah.
we
More
don't have
comes
any
from the
control
state.
over that.
No.
The community can
No.
feel
I know.
however we feel.
I mean,
We have no control.
Well,
Yeah.
We
the
can-
only control, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we could remove it.
There's one. Yeah.
We're allowed to
mandatory-
remove
think
it,
we
but
would-
it's
no.
going
I
to
don't
cost
think we
a
can
lot
No,
of
remove
they're
it.
not
money.
gonna remove it. No, they
A&R
don't want
won't
us
let
to
you.
remove it, and they don't want us to
can't
fix
touch
it.
I thought they said you
Any-
can't
I
do
think they
anything
would love to
other
remove
than
it.
remove it.
And I think there is money to remove it. And that guy who's on the dam task force has been waiting for this moment for the last 25 years. And every time I see him, he looks up, shoots daggers at me, you know, it's like,
Who's that?
he's got red hair, what's it, what?
Okay.
At the time, I would too.
Just look up the dam task force on,
Yeah, yeah, he showed us some
on
of those
Google.
meetings.
He's
Yeah.
on that thing, and he and Kinney go hand in hand.
I would be.
To remove the dam.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we could reinvestigate. I'm not
So,
sure
but Dorothy,
what,
if we removed the dam, then a lot of the sediment would flow,
But
like,
they'd
would
have to
go
truck out-
downstream.
They'd have to truck out a lot of the sediment probably.
Well, it
before
depends on-
removal.
Before
Yeah,
I
depends
mean,
on what
the
I
whole,
did
the
just-
whole,
Yeah.
it'll all be lower. In other words, the banks will be steeper.
Yeah.
And,
Well, but the banks are where they are now, so without, you know, like
No, but
the river will narrow within the channel
yeah,
instead of continuing to erode.
Right.
right.
That would be the idea. Which would at least save your lawn.
Again.
What?
It would save your lawn.
Maybe not. I mean, before the riprap was put on, the river was kind of doing this. And because I think they were taking the gravel out, which meant the river was always trying to eat something to make up for the
Yeah.
gravel that was removed. And I was losing huge chunks. And I was very happy to get that riprap put in, but there was people who were upset because that meant they weren't taking the gravel out. So and I've had a pretty stable situation since the riprap went in until a year ago, when now that the dam failing has changed and all the stuff that I planted is falling into the river, and my stairs are, the last bottom 5 stairs of my beautiful stone steps are now just a shambles. And so whether every storm is going to eat another step and I'm not going to have any steps, I mean, that's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm anticipating, is really losing the whole thing.
There's the emergency watershed protection too,
Yeah, that's possible.
you know.
So
But
let's
that would-
flag the dam.
Yeah, yeah.
We're all pretty clear. We don't know what we want to do with it, or what we're
all
allowed
pretty
to
clear.
do.
We
with
have a lot of opinions and
and
Not
I mean,
sure.
I know
Very
Ellen is
direction.
very adamant about letting it do its own thing. And she's probably the most strong
she's
on
wanted
that.
to keep it.
What?
Yeah, she's wanted to preserve it.
Yeah,
well,
so
at this
I mean,
point,
we've all wanted.
in my conversations with her, she's said, you know, you're just gonna have to let it
Right.
degrade slowly.
Yeah.
Because she knows we can't
Yeah.
build it back up.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Can we move on to to another site? Dorothy, do you feel heard, and like, is there anything else you'd like to communicate about that site?
I don't know whether there's a plan for more erosion right now. Is there something?
To mitigate the erosion.
Yeah. For,
Yeah, we could put something in
Right.
for that definitely, because even if it continues to progress, you know, that dam going out, those
The
banks
dam-
are going to need to be stabilized,
Right.
so you don't lose, you know, because otherwise
I mean,
that
right
could
now I
become
can
a
see
new
the Grimm's
problem.
wall is not looking totally solid. And then you've got, and I don't know what, to me, in the course of the summer, there should be some other, you know, we could talk about what to do about the dam for another 3 more years, but in the meantime, is there some erosion mitigation?
Solution for those banks.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, I mean,
Again,
If we
it's
have
too
another-
late, though.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
qualifying
Do it
storm
and then
event,
the dam.
there's a program we definitely could use
Yeah.
that would be able to,
I mean, there was a thing in December, that's when a lot of my steps went out.
yeah.
This past December?
We have the
But yeah, we'd have to actually have some level of disaster declaration, because USDA has a program called Emergency Watershed Protection that post-disaster, then you can go in and they'll either do, like, basically provide 75% funding usually for stream bank stabilization, that sort of thing.
Sometimes wooded debris removal,
so-
but it's private property, and it's if you're at risk, if the next flood is gonna impact your house. They're real
Impact.
particular, but I
Im-
mean, it sounds like you know,
That's
you're
not-
getting there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it up to 18 inches in my house in '98. That was the highest.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then in Irene, it just came in the door.
Well, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see.
I'm just saying, I've had two, major house events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm just looking at stuff in the, right now on the banks that are my, I call it my Nilometer. Like how high up, how many steps up is this
Yep.
event? And now I don't have the steps to measure with.
Okay, so
Yeah, we can
stream bank
definitely.
stabilization in
Yes.
that area
Yeah,
can be
it sounds
identified.
like short-term and long-term
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of solutions, and definitely protecting
Yeah.
the downstream property is important.
right.
Whatever happens to the
And
dam.
I don't know if the dam went out, what kind of damage it would do below. I mean,
Yeah,
and I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's that, the
That's
bridge
how-
on Main Street is the next large opportunity for a log jam. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
there are the gully behind
Yeah, I
the
was just gonna say,
Yeah.
behind
post
their
office.
house, yeah.
And so
That gets pretty narrow, and
And I
so
don't know
if
whether,
those
I don't know
timbers
whether
got
those
stuck in
neighbors
there.
down below have seen any kind of impacts from the debris that's sort of, been coming down.
Yeah.
Have you
Say
noticed?
harvest the logs out.
They're
You know,
they're
if they've been
timbers.
buried, I know, but if
Yeah.
they've been buried long enough, because they're generally old growth timber that
Yeah,
you can't buy.
yeah.
You know, as the community,
Priceless.
harvest the logs out and sell them.
Just trying to get to them.
Might be able to actually get a value for that.
I just, where I keep coming back to this is the dam is going to fail at some point,
Yeah.
and that is going to cause potentially massive damage. And therefore, my mind just goes to why not just take it apart and have some control over how that's mitigated and how we
Have
I mean,
control
that's
control
what
that.
that
plan.
Army
So-
Corps project for $1 million that was their attitude.
Controlled,
Yeah.
yeah,
And when was that? What year?
failure.
I don't know, I've got the thing at home,
Is this in the
So it's
last
only
20
like 4
years?
million now.
probably 15 years ago.
15 years?
15, so it's 6 million, 8 million.
I mean, I was,
Well, I mean, how do we assess what the damage would be,
Could be, yeah.
could be?
How do we
And what
assess what the
because-
damage?
Because in order
That's
to
fine.
do that,
Yeah.
well, in order
I
to
mean,
do that
engineering.
analysis you were talking about, if you're gonna spend the money on it,
Right.
you gotta know if it costs
Cost
$6 or $8 million
analysis.
Yeah.
how much is it, yeah.
It's
Right.
got to
No,
save
the
6 times
BAC.
that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It would be a phased project. definitely.
Yes.
You'd want to get a preliminary design and then see
I
if
mean-
you're going to go to the next stage,
Yeah.
and it
I
would
got,
be.
there was a lot of preliminary designs, there was a lot of flow studies about how much, I don't know where Barry Simpson's, files are down there in the basement, but there's a ton of data on how the flow, and I don't know
But that
how,
was 15 years ago,
yeah,
so everything's
Everything's
changed. We would
changed.
have to get all new information
Yeah.
anyway.
well, the river's still there.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the modeling has changed significantly.
Yes.
Okay, I think for
Yeah.
the sake of time, we
Yeah.
have to move on,
Okay.
but I think this is really valuable, and I'd really like to hear from you guys as far as, what we
Yeah.
could put in the plan that
Yeah.
would maybe allow us to leverage funding to consider this project.
Yeah.
Do some analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's definitely a location that probably should be studied both for possible dam removal, but at minimum for stream bank stabilization
Yeah.
post dam
Kind of,
failure.
yeah.
Right.
I think it'd be good to actually start a conversation with Karina Daly of
The dam task
VNRC.
force.
Yeah, the dam
Yeah.
task force, but her specifically, and have her come and look at the location, because she might even be able to come up with a ballpark, like, it'd be a really back of envelope estimate of like, would be a ballpark
I just saw her name on here.
estimate of
Yeah, that's who definitely.
what that might cost, in a failure, and what she would ballpark, like,
Yeah.
a removal, even, because that's what she does.
Right.
Do you know
yeah.
her, Dorothy, from the task force?
I'm looking up,
I'm also happy to facilitate.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
work with her.
If you,
and-
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
would you
Yeah,
connect
we've all-
us? That would
Yeah.
be great.
No, yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Maybe I CC the
Yeah.
both of you or something.
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, just to start the conversation,
Yeah.
and tangentially, but we also CBRPC also administers the Clean Water Fund for
Mhm.
the Winooski Basin, and sometimes we can,
Right.
kind of co-fund something like a bigger project like dam removal. But we're also working with Waitsfield to do floodplain restoration. So Watershed Consulting is looking at a few different sites. but it's obviously all the Mad River watershed. So
Yeah.
you know that spawned from their LHMP. The Friends of the
Yes.
Mad River had 4 floodplain projects, I think, that they had called out in the River Corridor Plan, and the properties are mostly Conservation Commission municipal properties. So
Sure.
that'd be something we'd be interested in talking about with you all after this. Is like, hey, do you know, are there clean water projects? And we did ask if we can use that money to fund goat control of knotweed, because you know the floodplain restoration would be, you know, lowering the floodplain and then doing a riparian buffer planting.
Right.
But if there's a bunch of knotweed, there's
Choke
restrictions
everything
on
up.
us with that money about you know not using chemical fertilizer to a certain degree. So we're asking them. We're learning about what all we can do with the money in terms
Okay.
of like this situation where we're talking tree plantings or restoration on the Mad River. So what we find out in Wastefield, we'll definitely let
Okay.
you all know.
Awesome.
And you know, if we can do some, you know, because there's definitely for project development, we can definitely, you know, help out with the study aspect, and then
Okay.
it's just a matter of who's going to fund the next.
Yeah.
You know.
That's always the
I
question.
mean,
Right,
you could
yeah.
wait till the dam goes out, but in the meantime, you've got a whole lot of erosion happening month by month. So
Right.
if you're not addressing the month by month in some kind of thoughtful way, you're gonna have a worse situation when the
Exactly.
dam does go out.
Yep.
That's what I guess is, or you could lose the whole group, the whole groom's whole wall.
We hear you.
Curious to
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
what Andrew has to say about that and how much he's noticed.
Yeah. Okay. Other
Yeah.
sites.
Yeah, is there any place else in the community that you're,
Brook
You-
Road.
Brook Road, yeah.
Yeah,
Brook Road
I think you got
landslides.
that on there.
Landslide.
You had the Flatiron Road, which we have a 30% design plan to
Yeah.
address.
Very mixed feelings about that one.
I think a lot of people do. Yeah.
Whether that's really, that particular little segment there, doing anything to that is gonna make any significant
I
difference.
think we need to address
Up
further
higher.
up, you know,
Exactly.
before we come down, putting the chicken, you know.
So further up, we have talked at length in our land use development regs, the new proposed document talks at length about modifying practices for driveways and stormwater management, et cetera, placing flood resiliency at a really high level of concern. So how can we, in our upper watersheds, slow water down?
yes.
Collect some of that water.
Collect some of that water up there so that it doesn't all just funnel into the village.
Yeah,
And how do we incorporate that?
yeah.
I don't know, like, where that happened. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's a
right.
whole river and stream system that is East Warren,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But then that is also like 12 different stream and tributary
We had
systems,
Exactly.
right?
in the 2019 plan, there was the action of developing a road stormwater management plan
Yeah.
under MRGP. Municipal roads general permit includes road erosion inventories and implementation plan. I don't know if that is in motion already, but we can push
is,
that
right?
into
That's
this.
what-
plan.
that's what
Andrew
Andrew-
does that every
We just got
Yeah.
year. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
that's
I
That's
think
part of
this
it.
is more, well, at least the land use development regs talk more about private development and making sure that people who are developing their own properties
Right.
are not, creating larger flows of water or diverting it into streams that then increases the volume of those streams and that is exponential downstream, right?
Yeah.
So I think we are just really curious about how do we do this work? What can we do to help retain water higher in the watershed?
Yeah, I mean, restoring the access to the floodplains is sort of like the go-to, ecological best practice of like making sure that what you're describing is essentially like diffusing the water.
Let it go
Yeah.
higher
Yeah.
up.
If you had a
Exactly.
nice dam there, the water would just
And-
spread out all over my fields,
And
like it used to do.
Talking about it below before it
So
floods.
slowing,
That's a different one.
yeah,
slowing
or
the flow,
wetland development even.
Yeah.
wetlands,
Yeah.
You know.
adding woody material. So there's like a number of practices that you can do to get at that result. But targeting the headwaters right there is what you're saying. Like that's an action. You know what I mean? Of like how to let's do these things at the top of the watershed And if that, you have land use regulations that are strong, something could be to investigate, including that in the land use regulation if you're developing, and there's probably already language already in there if you're developing at a certain elevation, it's going to be a little bit more restrictive than if you're above 2,500 feet, so it could be looking at it from both angles of like, are there regulatory tools that you can use? And then also, we know that there's non-regulatory project opportunities out there that, we'll put ourselves down as that, again, the clean water service provider, like to help think about, are there landowners that actually do want to look at doing some of these projects, large private forest patches that we can talk about, erosion prevention on those, and trying to fix a little bit of what's been done, or
I guess I'm like trying to visualize what that looks like when you talk about adding woody material or repairing a floodplain. I mean, having grown up there, like, I can't even really imagine anywhere that these streams flood. They're all so small.
I know.
And they filter then into like Freeman Brook.
Right.
Like they all come down into Freeman Brook, and Freeman
just a
Brook
lot of
comes
tiny
down into the
little
Mad River,
things.
and it's like there isn't. It's all so steep that
Yeah.
there isn't anywhere.
Yeah.
And maybe there never will be.
And maybe
Yeah,
there never
yeah,
will
I mean-
be. And
Do we-
so is there, I mean, do we modify the environment? Like, is that what the beavers were doing when
Yeah.
they were making dams and that created floodplains, but
Yeah.
we like to kill them and remove
That's what
them?
we're
so
doing.
they don't
Parachute
allow-
beavers into the forest.
Parachute beavers into the forest. I like it. Are we using drones, or do we get to go with the
We
beavers?
actually want to throw the beavers out on a plane with parachutes.
Right.
Sounds
Okay.
more fun that way.
No, but like,
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
people
Those-
remove beavers all the
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
That doesn't seem like maybe a good idea.
Depends
I mean,
on where
the
it
beaver,
is.
Yeah.
Right,
And it
because
will
they
affect
like
your
to
house.
flood
I
the
know.
Granville Gulf. That's one of their
Go
favorite
up on
places.
Lincoln Gap, was flooding somebody's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess they built their house in the wrong place.
They put a fire pond in, so it's kind of
yeah.
a catch-22.
yeah. Beavers are one of those tough ones, like, because we generally have more of that response of, like, just get them out of there.
Yeah.
It's a lot more nuanced. I would definitely say I'd recommend working with DC. They have a
Yeah.
staffer that's all he does is just do as beaver human interactions.
DEC is,
Department of Environmental Conservation.
Thank you.
So part of Agency of
Yeah.
Natural Resources. They even they'll come and install beaver baffles around culverts to keep them from actually plugging up the culvert.
Yeah.
So they can have a beaver dam real close to it, because they really like to do that. Build
Yeah,
next
they
to the
do.
road or through your culverts.
Is that for public or private?
I know they do public. I think
Yeah,
he
they
does
do
both.
private.
Because when the homeowner that I can think of tried it, wouldn't do
I said
anything.
no.
Yeah, that's it. I'm this guy because he does it all the
Fish
time.
and
Like,
Wildlife wouldn't do anything.
Oh, interesting.
yeah, that's been. I know he does some private, because they did Wheeler Pond that the Green Mountain Trail Club has
Yeah.
cabins on. They installed one of those through the dam, where sometimes they'll dig up a portion of the dam and actually put a piece of flexible pipe about 1 foot and run it right through the dam, so the dam then will only back up to a certain water level. Usually
Kinda
it
like
makes
overflow.
yeah, it's like an overflow pipe, and usually that makes the beavers kind of happy, because they still get to hear their running water sound, and they don't mind that there's a pipe through their dam. They don't seem to block it up, because they usually run it 20 feet out of the pond or so.
Start making the beavers permanent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the beaver permit, they like that. They were like, we approve.
So the Brook Road slide, I mean, what, do we need to tell you more about that? Or, I mean, what kind of things can we do
I
about
think
that?
it's more a visual thing. You almost have to see it to
Almost have to go up and
understand
see
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
Yeah, I think I even know
what-
where you're talking about.
what do you
Right
do?
on the,
yeah, what
on the
is
opposite
our
bank.
mitigation action
Yeah.
or our preparedness action
What
with
kind of
respect to that
stuff could
So
landslide?
you-
Sugar Bush Road, same deal. I mean, there's landslides across town that you want to address, right? But Brook Road sounds like a.
Brook Road, I think,
This is
is
bigger
more
issue.
like,
Different.
it's becoming log jammed.
Yeah, it's just,
Okay.
it's
So
gonna
the-
close off.
so the
the
landslides have
river,
come.
and it's-
And the trees have just slid with it. So now you get the trees, the root balls with them,
The
and
clay,
it's just,
the
it's
mud,
starting to,
everything's-
it's just,
It's filling
Filling
the
in.
river.
Yeah.
yeah, it's filling in, and like I said, it's starting to divert the stream, and so when we get flooding, it diverts the stream, so it
Underneath.
pushes it closer to the road, and
It will go under it
Eventually, under
eventually.
the road.
yes.
I'll underline it.
So I think we had talked, at the beginning
Or
at least, of
flood
like,
people's
can we cut it
That's
up? Can we, like, what can we do
Okay. Yeah,
to help that clear itself?
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It hasn't been a
And
good
I know-
funding.
Lisa from
Yeah.
DEM came in. She actually looked at it and she goes, "Yeah, I don't think A&R will do anything."
Okay.
I'm like, "Okay, fair." You know, but I've had A&R come out like 5-6 years ago before it was even that bad.
Who, do you mind if I ask who from A&R? Do you know who that was?
Yeah.
Was it Jaron?
Yeah.
Okay. And said at that time he wasn't willing to do anything.
Maybe we should follow up.
Yeah, as I say,
I mean, like I said, it was before the pandemic. I know that.
Right,
So
okay.
as I say, in the wake of the last 2 summers,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Maybe.
I mean,
Jaron.
They're coming out.
Yeah, if we're getting them out here, like,
Yeah.
let's make it
Okay.
let's make it a day.
These projects before the plan gets passed.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
As far as the Sugarbush Access Road, it's a little different. It's not really like a landslide. It's like
It's
the
just a
whole
lake.
mountain.
It's a slump.
Yeah.
It's a road.
It's a
Yeah,
slump.
yeah. Yeah, that's.
And we do address it, and GIS does the, what's it called?
the LiDAR.
LiDAR, thank you, the LiDAR testing every other year.
Who does that?
Somebody.
GIS,
GSI.
GSI, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And we have some stabilization measures in place, the shotcrete. And they sort of guide us on how much it's moving and what we need to do and when.
Yeah, how fast?
Okay.
When's it gonna get moved?
Right.
What about West Hill? That's in process.
Wouldn't want to be on this list, it's.
Yeah, it was from our previous hazard mitigation plan,
Okay.
so,
Should it stay on the
I
list?
was just gonna say, should it stay on the list?
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
There's a lot of cars and washing machine.
That's another landslide?
Yeah.
It's
It's more of a
It's a-
stabilization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't use old cars and
It's slightly
dishwashers to
moving.
stabilize the
Gotcha.
side of the river.
Or build road bases.
Yeah.
We've
Oh,
done-
I mean, cars were built stronger then. I made up. You're
Yeah, so I have, from 2019, a complete work on very high priority road segments identified under municipal road improvement. And it includes Plumpton, Roxbury, Mountain Road, Prickly Mountain, Fuller Hill, and West Hill Road. So I don't know if we want to include all of those again.
Those are the roads that Andrew's been addressing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's kind of where we're going.
Yeah.
Would you read those again, please?
That part of
Yeah,
it.
the roads were Plumpton, Roxbury Mountain, Prickly, Fuller Hill, and West Hill.
Yeah, I mean,
think
they
he's
did the
done
fuller.
all of them.
Yeah,
I mean, not
think
all of
the new
it.
one this year is airport
Yeah.
that he's
Yep.
doing.
Whether it's all done
I
or
don't, what
not.
has he done on West Hill? How much can he, well, we're doing that. That's what we're doing,
that's
yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, they've done a lot of work
Yeah.
on
Fuller Hill
culvert,
especially.
or on ditching
Ditching,
and, you know,
Yeah, stone lining, all that.
yeah. Yeah, they've done great work and it's
Nice.
paid off
Yes.
time and time
Yeah.
again with high water events.
Nice.
We've been all
We've been really
pleasantly
lucky.
surprised and grateful for their work.
Yep.
Yeah, overall, the MRGP program, from what we've been seeing,
Yeah.
most communities, I mean, if you get a heavy enough, like, playing field,
Right.
if you get
Yeah.
7+ inches of rain
Yeah.
in 24 hours.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Exactly. The road is going to fail.
Right.
The ditch might be fine. but The road's now gone.
Right,
So it doesn't really matter.
ditches now, yeah.
Yeah. The ditch stayed. Yay. But yeah, in your more normal rain events, it's definitely, and even the smaller extreme rain events, it's definitely
Yeah.
improving the outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. I saw you had a note about webcam or cameras on the pitcher end. I mean, that is definitely an area that in high water events, that is one of the first
Our
places
flags.
to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation just as a valley-wide, being able to have more cameras to be able to view the rivers and everything else, because like the river gauge in Moretown doesn't always work.
Right.
It's at the end.
Yeah, it's at the end, but it's also, so all of a sudden it's fine, then it spikes, and it's like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah, because it was this big wave,
Because
right?
it's 40 years old,
Well, yeah,
and they're
it's
not
'cause it's-
putting money into it.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, and yeah.
So that's valuable,
And
I
that-
think, seeing how it's coming
Yeah.
into the village, how it's coming down Freeman
I mean,
Brook.
I'll look at the webcam for the covered bridge in Waitsfield to see what the water level's at
Right.
there
Yeah.
to give an idea. Now, obviously, having one by the pitcher in wouldn't be bad. It probably wouldn't be that bad to get one put in there. But it's, that's really the one point, because it's kind of like a choke point.
Yeah, but even along Flatiron, like where it comes under the bridge there
Yeah.
would be a good place, because that's where I usually gauge what's happening with our river next
That's
to
what Kinney's
Flatiron.
for.
That's what what?
But-
That's what Kinney's for.
That's
She's
what-
just
But if you're
standing out
closer to the
there.
pitcher in, you will get that same information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when that starts to get bad,
Right.
it's getting worse other places.
Well, and the benefit of that is you could probably come up to an agreement with the pitcher in to utilize their Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're up, someplace
Yeah.
remote, then you're having to pay for a cell signal
Right.
to
Right.
get that out.
Yeah, I think that they'd be hopefully happy to do that.
Yeah.
What was the other place I was just thinking?
And the other one is, we've talked about, is communication,
Yeah.
to better communication in the valley.
How do we do that?
I'd say one thing about the communication right where I am, we're really dependent on neighbors in floods. Right now I have no neighbors. They're all second homes. So you have a village that's empty.
Empty.
You got
And-
Chris. He's right there.
That's right.
You're
And
the road crew.
I know, and I tell you about Chris. I
Yes.
don't ever get any fights with him about his RVs or anything.
There
I
you
am
go.
totally
Worship Chris.
doing.
And he's on the high ground. You just go there.
Yes, exactly. Go up.
And he's got housing.
But I'm saying, all these people who used to help me during floods are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have all the cams you want, but if you don't have any human beings
Yeah.
who will come and help you move your rugs, you're up Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
Exactly.
SOL.
Yeah.
Well,
But
yeah.
communication is,
I'm just saying, the village has been sold out.
Yeah.
Different topic, but yes, but related.
But establishing a neighborhood network that will respond,
Yep.
to
Right,
build off
right.
of what you're already doing.
Have emergency response.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, let's
Yep.
put it in there.
Yep. Yep.
I don't feel safe with it.
Yeah. I get it. I do.
increased cell service. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Because I look at Warren Falls,
I know.
from
Oh,
what I
yeah.
understand from
Really
that drowning,
dangerous.
there was an 11-minute delay.
Delay.
Because somebody had to go, get in their car, drive, get to
To get
Warren
cell
Village where they had enough cell service. Once they explained everything, then there was that delay, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's,
It's true.
Yeah.
and if there's a bad enough car accident, same thing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it also would probably reduce the number of accidents through there.
If you had better cell service?
Because it's right where people are cutting out, so they're
Right.
looking at their phone,
Exactly.
trying to.
All of a sudden, ding,
What's
ding,
going on with
ding,
my phone?
ding, and they start looking at their phone and not
Into the
pay attention to the
guardrail.
roadway, and
Yeah.
Okay. Increase communications in the village.
improve.
Improve communications by increasing cell service.
By increasing neighbors.
And that would be lovely, and we'll continue that conversation with respect
I'm
to
just saying, it's
STRs,
really,
et cetera.
when you're talking about safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I know.
Katie
absolutely.
Bush was the best
100%
neighbor
agree.
I could ever have.
Yeah.
Through 2 floods.
Yeah.
She was
We
my,
just have so little control over that.
well, there's somebody who's writing tax laws that are encouraging a whole recreational industry that wants to have more second homes and more people, and these village towns, you could just these houses are so cheap, you just get, somebody's selling it,
Well, they're writing tax law right now that's flipping that around.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's from somewhere other source. There's been forces that have been selling out the village.
Well,
And it's
not just
gonna
the
affect your
village, the entire
schools.
country.
Yeah, and it's not just here,
No.
it's everywhere.
But-
And it may be just the increasing income gap.
Income inequality.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, without
it's
a
a
doubt.
big part of it.
So we digress,
Yes.
although these are really
We
important.
don't.
Exactly. But we can't fix that.
You have to cover everything up.
So we've got the community profile section, so there's like a section in the plan that addresses the community profile and demographics.
Great.
That'll be part of it that you can review when the
Oh, that's
draft
good.
comes out. We're pulled from the Mad River, the planning districts, their, annual report. So the statistics are in there, and we do want to be factoring in changes in, development trends,
Yeah.
demographics.
Yeah, so that's
That impacts all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if you're building out so many more houses, and then you're gonna need more emergency response.
Right.
That's gonna
Yeah,
go
and
on.
if they're second homes,
Or-
Yeah.
you don't actually have a volunteer
No.
fire crew.
So there's not much that
it's-
isn't part of this conversation, and it's 8 o'clock. So let's think about where we're at. Where
Thank you for keeping us.
we talked about the timber crib dam, and just that whole, planning scenario and how to move forward with that. We've talked about Brook Road, Flatiron Road, flood resiliency in the headwaters especially, West Hill Road, better communications, webcams. What else? What are the other, thematic themes or discrete locations that we want to get out there tonight?
You don't have a volcano or something waiting something.
Not that
Yeah,
at all,
no,
but
it
you
wasn't
never
on the
know.
list.
It wasn't on the list. We just wanted to make sure.
It might be being built, but
A cooling center.
Cool.
Okay.
We've had conversations about making the town hall into a cooling center.
Okay.
And
now
I think
can.
It is.
we
yeah.
know,
It is now.
is it technically now because we added the heat pumps?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
puts it
Yeah. So you
officially
can set that
as-
up as an official cooling center.
Great.
As we can actually create a hot, well, generally we call them extreme temperature plants because then you can use it both hot or cold.
Yeah,
Right.
great.
But yeah, we can do that. It's just a quick annex. Again, basically, it takes about an hour, hour and a half to develop that
Working on
plan.
it.
Yep.
And
Is that part of your emergency management plan?
yeah, yeah, and then it just goes in
Awesome.
an annex on the LEMP, and we can do that.
Cool.
And we can list it in here. It covers, so then you have your mitigation action
Yeah.
for both the hot and cold weather. And realistically, we can have it done even before this plan's finished. We can just say,
Yeah.
in progress and implemented.
Yep. That's
So
great.
it's a real easy box to check off.
We haven't, so from what I understand, we need a mitigation plan and a
Local
preparedness
emergency.
action.
But just
Yeah,
in a
we don't-
mitigation
Sorry.
Yeah, just
for each hazard. You
For
can
each
have
hazard.
multiple for, flooding, let's say. There's gonna be multiple, and then preparedness action as much as you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we need a mitigation action for each one of these line items.
yes.
Right.
And but
Are we currently
preparedness
missing some?
actions also qualify as well.
Oh.
But those actions kind of break into one or the other. So like a hot weather plan is actually a preparedness action, but it covers both the hot or cold weather extremes.
But the cooling center would be right. That's preparedness.
Yeah, that's preparedness, but it
Yeah,
still
yeah.
qualifies.
Right.
FEMA will count that as a mitigation action.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your
Clear as mud.
mitigation act, it's
Since
you
we
know,
can't-
like I said, it's one of those confusing.
You can't control
It's their
Mother Nature.
mitigation action
Right.
table, but that's made up of mitigation and preparedness
Hmm.
actions.
Okay, I just, I don't know,
I know, I
I don't even
understand.
need to understand.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanna know if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have one for all
Yes.
of the
List,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have, we definitely have some material from you all from our first meeting, and tonight is filling in definitely some gaps. I
Yeah.
think what we could do, is draft up a table, 2025, and then we will give that to you all to review, and if there's any gaping holes, we can
Yep.
address it at that
Okay.
time. And we can also make suggestions of like, hey, we've done these many other LHMPs, these are some ideas from other towns.
Great.
If we're like trying to find something for drought. But
Right.
yeah, for the most part, it's just what you all want in that plan, and it's a process. So this isn't the last chance at all. But we're gonna have a good.
We're still working
We're
on
gonna
it.
have a good start now, and yeah, we're in a really good place.
Awesome.
So
Excellent.
If
Good
it
work.
does it make sense for me to review the plan from 2019, just to see what we did and what we didn't do, and
I think
perhaps make sure that we include it?
because we've done that.
Okay.
We've done that. So
Oh, okay.
I think because I have a working list of questions for municipal staff. So I think I just need to wrap that up, and then
Okay.
I will send it on to you and say, hey, this is what questions we have
Got it.
carried over, because we're essentially going through the entire 2019 plan,
Yeah.
and filtering out old stuff, putting in the new stuff.
Yeah.
So, even before the draft is done, I'll reach out and say, these are like the specific questions that we
Okay.
need from the road foreman or
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yep.
And then you all can kind of pass that around, and then we'll have a draft
Yeah.
to put out for public review.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and we'll still go through and look at anything that we would flag as a vulnerable community. So like if
Like
say you guys
Dorothy.
don't have it. Well, it's more
Oh,
like
you mean like-
trailer parks there in those
Yeah.
line areas, schools,
Specific.
daycares, anything like
Right.
that, where you have a kind of mass congregate. There could be an evacuation problem. We'll definitely
Senior
coordinate with
citizens.
Jeff. Yeah, exactly.
Senior housing, stuff like that.
Yep, anything like that. And make sure we have the full list of that.
Right.
Those will be called
We
out
have any
on the
of those
maps.
in the school?
The only one would be the closest one would be the Sugar State School,
Yeah.
because of the stream right there.
I see.
Yeah, and that's what we'll work through that. Like,
Gadbrook.
like Lang had said, we'll develop the mitigation actions as we're aware of from all the conversations we've had so far. We'll put that into one table, share that out with the planning team and everybody, so that if there's any slots where we still need to include anything, or if there's anything that you've thought of in the meantime, you're like, oh, I forgot about that. We can get those included, and then we'll develop a table also for like town capabilities, kind of planning commission, like what are all the different parts of the town government, and
Jeff Campbell.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jeff Campbell, superhero, and we'll say he needs to wear a
Hey
cape.
guys, he has to go home tonight, so he's not gonna fit through that door.
Go through.
Oh,
You
come
keep going.
We're talking
Hey, it was
about
the
it
same
now.
when we were in Middlesex and met with Eric. We're like, oh, when you get to do everything.
As we're wrapping up, these are the next steps that we talked about in more detail, but broad strokes is finalize mitigation actions. Then we're gonna, once we've reviewed that with you all, the hazard team, we're gonna have another public meeting. It could be just like this, be another select board date if that works, and that can kind of kick off, we'll have the draft by then. That might kick off the public comment period for a couple weeks. We'll get those comments integrated with you all. And then we recommend a pre-adoption by the select board, just because of the length of time Vermont Emergency Management can take to do their edits. It's nice as a town if you all can set it and forget it, and then they're going to come back at us with likely some level of required revisions.
Okay.
And as long as they're not, earth-shattering to the plan, which they won't be, it's going to be more like, dot the I, cross the T,
Yeah.
then we can just do that internally with the hazard planning team. Doesn't have to be a whole nother adoption, public comment.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just for awareness, the current wait time we're seeing from FEMA for their adoption of these, VM generally will have comments back in 2 months or so, and we work through that process, but FEMA's taking 4 to 6 months to get comments, but that's why we like that pre-adoption, because then we're not like,
And how does that
Sitting
affect
around.
grants?
as soon as this goes in, the RAF score goes right back.
Oh, okay.
To the state. So as
Yeah,
soon as
yeah.
you submit
state,
that,
Yeah, as soon as we submit it to
Right.
Carolyn Paskey at VM,
Yep. Okay.
it immediately, your RAF score goes right back up.
Okay. And it covers anything whenever there's a hazard mitigation plan
Exactly.
required.
Yep. Yeah, then it shows up as in process, but it counts for any
Gotcha.
any
Okay.
hazard mitigation grants or anything like that.
Okay.
So that's why we like that pre-adoption, because
Right.
it just automatically gets that bumped right to that.
Awesome.
I'd
Great
say we
work.
had,
Thank you.
had a
Thank you.
very
Yeah.
in-depth,
Great.
good conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks
Yeah.
for coming out.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your copy
Thank
with
you
you.
for
Appreciate it. You can read it.
participating, Dorothy. I read it.
You can explain it and you don't have any
I will
changes.
totally agree with you.
I don't know.
I know you.